In the previous lesson, we looked at the MySQL aggregate functions, count, average, max, min, and sum. The MySQL function to round decimals has exactly the same syntax as the aggregate functions, except that we also need to specify how many decimal points we want to round to. So it's select round, and then in parentheses the column name, and then a comma, then the number of decimal points, and then from table name. If we run that query on the item price column, specifying 0 as the number of decimal points to round to, we get all the values rounded. This is straightforward as far as the MySQL is concerned. The only thing to be aware of is how MySQL handles the always tricky matter of how to round exact halves, whether they should be rounded up or down or something else. On this data, MySQL will round exact halves away from 0, so 5.5 rounded to 0 decimal places would round up to 6, because that's further away from 0. I'll change this value from 5 to 5.5 to demonstrate this, and then select round, item price, 0 from items, and 5.5 rounds up to 6. If I browse the data again and change 5.5 to 6.5 and run the same query again, 6.5 rounds up to 7. And for negative numbers the same applies, meaning that minus 5.5 is rounded down to minus 6, because that's away from 0 again. Even though it doesn't make sense to have a negative number as a price, I'll temporarily change this to minus 5.5, just to demonstrate. And the result is minus 6. Change it again to minus 6.5, and that rounds down to minus 7. And change it back again to a positive number, 6.5, and do it again. And 6.5 rounds up to 7, away from 0. This rule applies to numbers stored in the database as exact numeric data types. You'll remember that when we set up the database, we specified that the item price column is of the decimal data type. Decimal is an exact numeric data type, so we get rounding away from 0. If we change the data type for the column, click on Structure, then on Change for the item price column, and then choose Float instead of decimal, and click Save, and then try the rounding again. Just remind ourselves that we've got that price set to 6.5 at the moment. And you will find that 6.5 now rounds down to 6. Change 6.5 to 5.5. Do the query again. And that also rounds to 6. That rounds up to 6. This is the rounding method known as rounding halves to even. All half numbers are rounded to the nearest even number instead of the nearest integer away from 0. And it's the same for negative numbers. Minus 6.5 rounds to minus 6. And minus 5.5 also rounds to minus 6 because it's the nearest even number. The rounding halves to even rule applies to the non-exact numeric data types, which are float, double, and real. The exact data types are decimal, numeric, and all the integer types, tiny int, small int, medium int, and big int. All these exact data types round away from 0. So that behavior is something to be aware of, otherwise you can get unexpected results when you round numbers. Let's put the database structure and contents back to what they were. Click Structure and then Change, and make sure that the data type for that column is back to decimal, and click Save. And click Browse, and change the price for that item back to 5. So that's the MySQL round function and the tricks associated with it and what we have to be aware of. And in the next lesson we'll look at MySQL string functions, which are most often used when we work with text rather than with numerical data.